Hello, everyone, and warm welcome to the Sephirah Center of Shamanism. My name is Luke, experienced practitioner and mentor of the Shamanic and Occult sciences. It is my absolute honor to welcome you to my YouTube channel, whereby we break down the ancient technologies of both shamanism and the occult, bringing them into balance with the modern psychology and deep psyche. Before I go into this topic, definitely check out my Patreon membership, which is the first link in the description. This is suitable for both beginners and advanced practitioners within the shamanic and occult sciences, and is particularly suitable for those who are either preparing for initiation or those who are in the midst of initiation and want different practices and technologies to assist with their process. Within this membership, you'll gain access to lots of exclusive content. New content is uploaded every week. You can expect initiatory systems, various different practices, spirit work, daemon magic, angel magic, jinn magic, Javanese magic, shamanic rites of passage, psychic clearing and development tools, as well as lots of other tools and techniques that you can use to grow towards your soul's evolutionary path. You will also have the opportunity to join the monthly adversarial gateway initiatory ritual, which is a powerful initiation performed every full moon that is an initiation into the deep psyche and the realms of dark matter energy for serious practitioners only. As I said, link is in the description. So on to today's topic. We're going to be discussing the process of shamanic and occult initiation from the perspective of preparation. We're going to be going into how you can effectively prepare to step into full shamanic and occult initiation, particularly from the perspective of the different qualities and practices and skills that you are needing to develop within yourself in order to really get the most out of this path. So if this is something that interests you, particularly for those who are on or wanting to step onto the shamanic or occult initiatory paths, then definitely stay tuned, as this is going to be very important for you. So from a self-development perspective, both shamanism and the occult offer unique evolutionary pathways that you can utilize to get to know yourself better, to heal on a very deep level, and ultimately develop yourself. However, it's important to understand that these practices are incredibly personal, and there are also a lot of different ego traps that one can very easily fall into. First of all, both shamanism and the occult are extremely alluring practices with a very strong persona and a very strong outer layer that does distract you from actually understanding what these practices are really here for and the true purpose of them. I would say the majority of people at this moment in time, and it is changing with the age of Aquarius, but I feel the majority of people who get into these practices are not really utilizing them in a way that really allows them to tap into their full potential. With shamanism, it's a very powerful way of life, but has a very strong outer layer with things like plant medicine, things like the ayahuasca, things like kambo, hape, different plant medicines, as well as very surface level shamanic practices and initiations of lots of people wanting to become shamanic practitioners, wanting to be seen as this powerful shaman who has done all of this work on themselves. In most cases, this practice is operating from a huge illusion of grandeur and has many people who are getting into it and are getting very much attached to what they have attained and are using that as a reason not to go any deeper. Don't get me wrong, there are amazing practitioners, amazing mentors. I'm not knocking any of that or trying to disprove it in any way, but it's not an exaggeration when I say that shamanism is a practice which has many different ego traps that do realistically act as a very blatant distraction from what the practice is actually here for, and that is the healing of yourself and the world around you. Whereas if you just work up to getting to this title as a shaman or as a healer, and then once you're there, you don't do any more work, which realistically is the majority of people, they use it as a reason not to go any deeper, then you're not actually utilizing it in a way that is actually helpful and in a way that is actually sustainable for the evolution of your soul, because the soul evolution process is continuous. It's a continuous process. So it's not about getting to here and then you're done. In that sense, it's a continuous process, and shamanism is a practice that needs to be utilized to help you continuously grow towards your soul's evolutionary path, getting to know yourself more and more as you go. Occultism is much the same. Occultism is very much focused around the hidden aspects of the self, exploring the hidden aspects of your psyche, the hidden aspects of human potential, and the hidden aspects of the cosmos. It has the potential to be a very powerful and life-changing practice, just like shamanism does. But many people get stuck in the ego traps of needing to manipulate reality, needing to have control, needing to have protection from all of these entities, all of these spirits that have apparently got it in for them. Oh, lots of tricksters, all of these astral parasites wanting to stop me from being in my power, and all of these different things that just distract you from what this practice is actually here for, and that is helping you to get to know yourself better. And that is what both of these practices really have in common. They are solid initiatory systems, ancient technologies that realistically have been around for much, much longer, are older than any of us know, and have the potential to really tap into hidden portions within the nervous system and within the psyche to really help to unlock your full potential. And if you're just getting stuck within these outer layers of needing to have control over your reality, needing to be seen as this powerful individual, then you're distracting yourself very blatantly from your full potential. And your full potential is something which cannot be fully defined by a single title or by a single construct. When you're really evolving, you are embodying the fluidity of reality. When you are really evolving and growing, you are not becoming more stubborn and becoming more attached to your role and identity as a human being, but you are actually using it to destroy your roles and identities so that you can really realize that you are so much more than those roles and identities that you have had predefined for you. And that is what these practices are really here for. There are various different initiatory systems within each practice. They are extremely broad. It depends on the tradition that you are exploring. Okay, various different traditions with both shamanism and the occult will approach initiation in a highly individual way. For example, in shamanism, initiation can be anything from a challenging life experience to going and receiving a share of different rites of passage from an indigenous shaman, or stepping onto a big initiatory system and path working that is designed to help you shift into that natural flow of life and death, back into the flow of nature. Whereas with occultism, it's again going to vary quite significantly, but you have the lighter occult practices that are focused towards, very much towards patriarchal practices. And then you have the darker occult practices, which are focused towards forging your own path and deifying yourself. So it's incredibly personal as to what type of journey that you take and what route of initiation you realistically go down. But what I will say is that real initiation is going to change your life. Okay, so a couple of examples is with shamanism or with modern shamanic initiation, the medicine wheel is an extremely powerful initiatory system that when interacted with in the right way has the potential to completely restructure your reality, rewire your reality, rewire your physical body and nervous system to really shift into a more natural existence and a more simple existence that is more in alignment with your soul. With occult initiation, you have things like Kabbalah, you have the dark Kabbalah, the Qliphoth, you have the light Kabbalah, the Tree of Life. You have lots of other initiatory systems and path workings, lots of different currents. You have the Draconian current, you've got the current of Shaitan Iblis, you've got the current of the angels. You've got the Necronomicon current. You've got so many different currents of energy that you have the potential to explore, but all of which have the potential to be extremely life-changing and will restructure your life completely if you interact with them in the right way. These initiations can become dangerous if one is not prepared. So it's important to develop the right skills, to develop the right qualities, and ultimately learn how to face yourself. Okay, both proper shamanic initiation and proper occult initiation is focused towards looking at yourself, being able to delve into your own internal darkness, being able to delve deep into your own shadow in order to get to know yourself on a deeper level, dissolve the illusionary constructs that you think have been defining your sense of self and that you think actually define who you are as a person and as a being, in order to really find a much greater potential that is far beyond what you had originally had constructed for you. So for that reason, as I said, it's very important to have the right qualities and the right approach from the perspective of trauma integration. So before going into shamanism and the occult, acknowledge the fact that you are going to have to look at your stuff. You're going to have to look at your shadow, particularly when it comes to occult initiation, darker occult initiation especially. It's going to throw it in your face and it is going to force you to deal with things that you have been repressing. If you interact with really deep shamanic initiation, then it's going to do the same thing in that regard. They're going to do the same thing in terms of really bringing the repressed trauma to the surface and helping you to look at your shadow. And many people may be thinking, but why do I even need to do that? Why do I need to look at my shadow? The reason for that is because your conscious mind is literally a spotlight. Okay, it's a spotlight that's shining into the middle of an abyss that has all of this unexplored trauma, and encased within it is a lot of unexplored potential and repressed power. So it's focused around really unlocking your full potential as a human being. That's what shamanism and the occult really have in common, is the true unlocking of your potential as a human being. But in order to do that, you need to go inwards. Okay, you can't go out there for the power. Okay, you can't go outside of yourself for the power. Otherwise, you're always going to be chasing something. And that is the majority of the New Age community. The majority of the New Age community is operating from this illusion of separation. So then it becomes about the next course that you do, the next teacher that you go to, and the next practice that you engage in. And that is then going to define my sense of self. Oh, once I've done this course, and then I'll be ready, then I'll be in my power. But then there'll be something else, then there'll be something else, then there'll be something else. So to really get the most out of these practices, you have to be prepared to not go out there. Okay, stop trying to escape from your physical experience and actually be in your body and do the work. You have to be willing to go into yourself, into your shadow, into your deep psyche, to uncover the deeper hidden aspects of yourself so that you can integrate the parts that you have repressed, integrate the traumas that you have repressed in order to tap into the power that exists within them. When you do that, that is when shamanic or occult abilities will start to open up. You will start to become more psychic. Okay, and there may be some people watching this video who are like, oh, I've already awakened my psychic abilities. Okay, that's another thing. Okay, without doing the groundwork, stop trying to open your third eye without doing the groundwork. Because ultimately, you're going to start to perceive things within the spirit world, but what you are perceiving is a direct holographic projection of what is within your own unconscious mind. So if you expand your psychic abilities without doing the deeper work, then you are going to start perceiving more within your psyche, but seeing it outside of you. And this is when it can become potentially ungrounding. Okay, these practices can very easily become very ungrounding and potentially re-traumatizing, because so many people are focused on the upper parts of the field. They're focused on the upper chakras. They're focused on awakening their psychic abilities, okay, learning how to channel, all of this cool stuff. But you can't do that without doing the groundwork, without focusing on the lower parts of your energy field, which are actually holding your repressed power. So when you are willing to actually go within yourself and uncover the hidden traumas and the hidden power that exists within those traumas, then you're going to gain access to a lot of different abilities. And the best part about it is that nobody outside of you is giving you those abilities. You are giving them to yourself, or should I say, you are unlocking them yourself by going into yourself. Okay. As I've said before in previous videos, the guru days are over. Okay. The days whereby we go to a guru and we learn from one teacher specifically, that doesn't exist anymore. Okay. Or should I say that is phasing out. Okay. We are at a point in humanity where we need to learn how to forge our own path. So we need to ultimately do the work, go inside of ourselves and stop trying to go outside to find the solution. The solution is inside. When we found it from inside, we can emanate that outwards and change our lives. So when you're interacting with shamanic and occult initiation, you will be made to face your shadow on a very, very deep level, but the rewards that you will experience for that are extremely significant. But it's not for everyone, and not everyone is at a point where they are ready to face themselves on that sort of deep level. Many people start picking up different shamanic and occult practices here and there. They might go to a weekend course, they might receive a few attunements and do all of these different things. But realistically, that can start to open up a big initiatory process that the person isn't actually aware of as well. Because if you're receiving, say, a rite of passage or an attunement to awaken this power that is within you, what you're doing is that you're shifting your nervous system so significantly, and it's starting to open things up within you. So then your soul starts to think, oh, okay, we're going down that path, are we? So then it's going to start to move you within that particular direction. And that can trigger a chain of events to start unfolding in that respect. It's a little bit like Pandora's box. Yeah, you open the box, you peek into the box, and then it's open, and then there's all kinds of things that can come out, all kinds of treasures, but also all kinds of repressed beasts and monsters and desires can start to come to the surface. So be aware of the fact that even just dabbling within these practices, and I would say the majority of people who do interact with these practices do fall under dabblers, but even just dabbling in these practices can really open you up to the alchemy. And if you're not conscious of what is actually happening, then it can be potentially re-traumatizing, because it can cause the repressed trauma to come to the surface at an incredibly quick rate. And if we are operating from the perspective of the majority of the New Age, which is from complete separation, viewing these things as entirely outside, that's when it can be potentially dangerous, because we're engaging in practices that are ultimately unearthing trauma. But then what's happening? We are then trying to separate ourselves from that trauma because it's too unsafe to feel, or it's too uncomfortable to feel. So shadow work and self-development, trauma integration, is something to get comfortable with before you start engaging within deep shamanic and occult initiation. The other thing is psychic development, learning how to perceive energy on a deeper level. Okay, what I'm finding is that the majority of people who come into contact with these different practices nowadays, they do have the ability to sense energy quite strongly. It's partially to do with the times that we are in, with the age of Aquarius, or however you want to refer to it. The energies collectively are elevating at an incredibly fast rate. So that means that people are becoming more and more sensitive. Not to mention the fact that many people who do get into these practices are quite empathic in nature and have learned to be extremely sensitive to other people's emotions, and in doing so have actually trained themselves to be quite highly psychic. So psychic development is one particular area that is important to develop, and understand how different types of spirits can interact with you. Okay, so spirits can interact with you in a variety of different ways. If you are going into the occult sciences particularly, or even the shamanic sciences as well, and initiatory systems, you are going to want to get familiar with your way of communing with spirit, ultimately, because spirit is not going to communicate with you through actual language in that respect. It's going to be more of a telepathic communication. It's going to be through, say, sensations in the body, through, say, auditory sensations, sounds, those types of things. So it's worth getting familiar with how you as a person actually interact with different types of spirits so that you can get to know when a spirit is around. I always know when a spirit's around because I start to see the outline of it, and it took me a little while to actually get to that point. But I start to see the outline of the spirit, and I start to get almost like sacred geometric patterns in my vision. Sometimes I see little orbs that appear in my vision as well. That's also quite a common sign of a spirit as well as sensations in the body. So energetic sensations around the head, tension around the head, sort of tingling sensations throughout the body, sometimes visions, sometimes random thoughts, that sort of thing. It's important to understand that these spirits don't really have a definitive form because form exists only within the physical tangible experience. Tangible form exists only on the physical level. So how you perceive a spirit is going to be highly dependent on your own psyche. What basically happens is that energy comes down, it filters within your belief systems and patterns that are dwelling within your psyche, and then it comes through and creates a definitive image. So this is why, for example, if you watch a horror film, then it will plant new archetypes within your psyche, and spirits can actually start to take that form of the archetypes that you picked up from that given movie, purely because you've just planted it within your psyche. So now these energies will then move into resonant avatars that are basically used as ways to describe to you what the energy is actually doing and the role and responsibility that it actually has, realistically speaking. So, for example, a darker spirit may typically appear as something that you would see in a horror movie initially, okay, without really getting to the deeper crux of what the energy is really for. So if you interact with a daemon, when I first interacted with a daemon came through literally as a big horned being in that sense. Do they actually look like that? No, they don't in that respect. Yeah, there's actually a lot more to them than those sort of outer layers. And a lot of those outer layers are pre-programmed within our society as to what certain spirits look like in that regard. So developing your psychic senses and understanding that your psychic senses are going to be highly dependent on your own psyche is a very important skill and quality to develop if you are going to be getting into shamanic and occult initiation, because you are going to be interacting with different types of spirits on a very deep level, realistically speaking. So it's also acknowledging the fact that they are archetypes. Okay, so these spirits are their own beings, but they also represent archetypes that dwell within your psyche. So they're really just there to help you get to know yourself better. And this is the same with like a darker spirit or a more malevolent spirit. Okay, it's pulled in through resonance. And even if it's there and apparently, it's got it in for you and wants to hurt you, there is always going to be a lesson and an archetype that you can draw from that particular experience, from that particular encounter, just like with a human being. Okay, if a human being manifests in front of you and is not being very pleasant to you, then it's very easy to separate yourself from that, but acknowledge after that, realistically speaking, you are being drawn that experience because you are in energetic resonance with that experience. And even that in itself can be extremely controversial. So learning to view the spirit world in that sort of way is also very important when it comes to our deeper initiatory processes. So when we are interacting with those spirits, do acknowledge that they do represent archetypes within you and they don't have a definitive form. And psychic development is very much focused around learning how to perceive energy, perceive spirits, and ultimately commune with them on a deeper level. There are various different practices that you can utilize to develop your psychic senses. There are different initiations. There are different, say, transmissions. There are different practices, actual, whether it's meditation or communicating with spirits or whatever that is. All of these, when they're practiced on a regular basis, will expand your vision. Chakra meditation is something which is quite basic, but is something which is also extremely important for the development of one's psychic abilities. Actually learning how to perceive your energy body, perceive these different energy centers, and learn how to interact with them in a way that is actually helpful to you is a very helpful practice for learning to really develop those psychic senses. Psychic senses are also directly tied to your own trauma. So the more you're willing to look at within yourself, the more you will perceive within the world around you. I will repeat that to emphasize it. The more that you are willing to perceive within yourself, the more you will perceive within the world around you. Another tool and practice that is very important to develop within yourself is shamanic journeying, also known as astral travel. Okay, shamanic journeying or astral travel is the process of shifting your awareness out of this physical, tangible experience and into the invisible world of energy, and using different archetypes within your imagination to interact with the spirit world directly. This comes back to the concept of your psychic perception being a deliberate projection of, or a holographic projection of your unconscious mind. Because when you're journeying through the astral plane, you are journeying through a plane that doesn't actually have a definitive form other than the form that you define for it. So what often is utilized to help with astral travel are symbolic maps that you can use within your imagination to actually create a tangible pathway to actually journey within your altered state of astral travel or shamanic journeying. For example, in shamanism, it's very common to utilize the three worlds, which are symbolic of the different densities. You have the middle world being the physical plane of existence, you have the lower world being the collective unconscious, and then you have the upper world being basically the sort of all of the causal planes, all of the higher densities that are beyond the collective unconscious. So all of that is symbolic. Okay, so often what happens is that when we're journeying into those planes, we utilize our breath and a combination of different techniques to shift into a state of trance. We can use a rattle, we can use a drum to actually move into an altered state of trance, and then create this mental image based off of our imagination of, say, walking through a forest. And walking through a forest is then symbolic of moving into different planes within ourselves. The trees, again, are symbolic of those three worlds. The middle of the tree, the bark, being the middle world. The branches representing the upper world and the causal planes, the higher densities. And the lower world being the roots of the tree, basically acting as the role of the collective unconscious, containing everything that has been neglected about the self. So when we're journeying through that forest, it takes on a symbolic structure of what we are actually accessing within us. So often when we're utilizing shamanic journeying, we would journey down symbolically as if we're journeying into ourselves, into the roots of the tree, in order to tap into the collective unconscious. And within the collective unconscious, we will find, say, symbolic things like tunnels, like mountains with all kinds of tunnels throughout, dark forests, those kinds of things that are, again, symbolic with the imagination, archetypes for the deeper unexplored portions of the self. Whilst the upper world, when we journey up, appears as a sort of big sort of ether-like plane in that respect, that doesn't have so much form, but you can shift into different levels of consciousness within that plane. Okay, you may find that utilizing a vision of the sky and the clouds is quite symbolic of the higher densities. So you may journey up on top of a cloud and then you'll find a load of cloud beings or cloud spirits, so to speak. And then they could be symbolic of a particular higher dimensional race that you are then interacting with. So learning to develop your astral travel skills and shamanic journeying is linked to psychic abilities, but learning how to really journey confidently is something which is also important when it comes to shamanic and occult initiation, because both of which utilize astral travel on quite a regular basis. With occult practices, a lot of path workings involve actually journeying to that given realm. So within the Qliphoth, each Qliphothic sphere, we're referring specifically to the Dark Kabbalah here. Each Qliphothic sphere is symbolic of a different hell realm that is within your own unconscious mind. So in a sense, you would be journeying into that different hell realm, into that given realm that is then going to show you symbolic things of what is within your deep psyche, very similar to a dream in that respect. So astral travel is a very important quality and skill to develop for these practices because you are going to utilize them a lot. Astral travel or regular astral travel does also greatly help your psychic abilities as well. Okay, as you're journeying, utilizing your imagination, you are then embodying a fluid view of reality. And when you're embodying a fluid view of reality, you know that nothing is particularly set in stone other than the reality that you are defining. And that is the key to opening up those psychic abilities. Learning that the physical, tangible experience in front of you is only one representation, but what is beyond that is something much greater. A big architectural drawing that is not yet set in stone, that is then influencing what manifests within the physical, tangible experience. So astral travel, very, very important. Dream work is also something that is worth looking into. Okay, dream work can be very helpful for really helping you to connect on a very deep, intimate level to your unconscious mind, to the archetypes that dwell within your unconscious. There is a very powerful practice called spirit ascension, or as how I've utilized it is with working with daemons, and they call it daemonic ascension, which is basically where you journey up into the realm of that given spirit. And it normally involves placing the sigil underneath your pillow with intention and then shifting into that altered state that is kind of between being asleep and being awake. And then you actually go and find that given spirit. So learning different methods for dream work and actually utilizing your dreams as a mirror for your own evolution is something that can greatly assist you, or learning how to dream in a way that is more easily interpreted, because everything that happens within your dream state is highly symbolic, and when you decode it, you will find hidden messages and hidden meanings within those dreams as well. So learning how to interpret dreams, learning how to work on a very deep level with dream work in general, learning how to interact with spirits consciously within your dreams is also something which can greatly assist these practices as well. Alongside that are various healing tools, so specifically tools that you can utilize to clear the energy of the space, particularly if you're going to be doing rituals, if you're going to be doing journeys to other realms, other planes of existence, if you're going to be doing invocations of spirits on a regular basis, you're going to want different tools to use to actually clear the environment around you. Okay, clear the environment of excess energy in order to really have a very clear and crisp experience with a spirit or within the journey state. So these are extremely flexible, and what you use will highly depend on you. On my Patreon, you will find lots of different healing tools. Very cool healing tools are on there, such as Astras. So Astras are very powerful energetic missiles that can be launched both at yourself, at other people, and in your environment to greatly clear the environment. I'm going to be putting loads of different Astras on there, as well as other very powerful healing tools as well. There are currently 3 Astras on my Patreon that you can receive by attunement. One of them is what you call the Siri Astra. The Siri Astra is very, very potent for just general clearing of your environment. You just launch it and it will clear your whole property and house. You can launch it into yourself. It will remove any intrusive energies that are dwelling within you, as well as someone else. You can use it during healing. There's also the Garud Astra, which removes generational curses, and another type of Astra that is particularly good for dealing with curses and entities, as well as other very powerful healing tools as well that are extremely easy to utilize. Okay, what I would say is sticking to practices that are simple when it comes to the clearing of the space. I'm personally not one that is a fan of big sort of exorcism rituals, or going up, standing in each of the four directions and saying a very powerful prayer in each of the four directions. Those practices really have their place, but for me, I like simplicity. So a lot of my practices are things that you would be passed by attunement, that you would then be able to tap into using your intention and greatly clear the energy of the space. In my view, it's good to work smart and not work hard. That's my personal viewpoint. So those are some main areas that you need to develop as well as just general perseverance. Okay, a lot of these deeper initiatory practices, particularly when we're referring to, say, the Kabbalah or something along those lines within the occult practices, they are things that are really going to require your patience and your perseverance and realistically your respect. When you're really getting into these practices, it's not something that you can do in just a weekend course. Okay, so ditch the idea of like, oh, going and just receiving a few initiations and then that's it, I've made it to this level. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, it's a continuous process of evolution. Yeah, in the occult, a lot of orders work in a very sort of pyramid structure, with a very sort of set hierarchy. And once you get to here, then you've made it, or once you get to there, then you're better than there. That hierarchy doesn't actually exist within the spirit world or within the real world, realistically speaking. Okay, it's a continuous process. So it is something with both of these practices, if you are wanting to interact with them on a very deep level, it's something that really requires your full commitment and the full commitment to yourself from the perspective of evolution. You are not making a commitment to anything that is outside of you. Even if you make a contract with a spirit, you are making a contract with an aspect of yourself. So acknowledge that when you are really getting into these practices and to really experience what these practices are really here for from the perspective of evolution, you need to persist with them. Okay, and acknowledge the fact that it isn't for everyone. Feel into whether it's something that you want, because there are some initiatory systems that once you open that door, it's very hard to close it. Okay, particularly when it comes to the occult initiation, referring specifically to the cliff off or other types of initiation like that. Once you open that door, you go through the alchemy, you're not going to be able to reverse that alchemy. You're not going to be able to go back to how life was before. It's a little bit like a blue pill, red pill kind of situation if we refer to the Matrix. Okay, and shamanism is much the same. When you really start interacting with yourself on this level, you're going to start to change. Doors are going to start to open within your psyche, and you're not always going to be able to go back. Okay, and if you do, you always have free will, then it will often involve actually repressing it all and actually putting more and more strain on your nervous system and even re-traumatizing yourself in the process. So do acknowledge that once you start interacting with these energies on a very deep level, it's very likely that you're going to find it difficult to turn back because the alchemy would have already started to take place. Okay, so shamanic and occult initiation are not small endeavors, but they are very powerful and very life-changing. They're full of dense challenges, but also rich rewards. You will tap into so much power within yourself if you start interacting with them in the right way. Okay, so I myself have lots of different options that you can choose from if you want to take this journey with me. I have 2 membership programs. The first is the Patreon, which I mentioned. It's in the first link of the description of this video. And again, this gives you access to lots of different exclusive content, which you can utilize for your healing and evolutionary path. I'm in the process of uploading all of my different initiatory systems and practices on there, and it is a lot of initiatory systems, so I'm going to be uploading them a few times each week. So there's always going to be new content being uploaded alongside lots of content which is already on there. So definitely check that out. On the Patreon, I'm also going to be putting specific initiatory systems relating to Kabbalah. I'm going to be putting a lot of information about Kabbalah, lots of information about different shamanic initiatory systems as well. So there are a lot of stuff on there already, as well as a lot of stuff that are basically in the process of being uploaded on there. So I definitely recommend checking that out. Not to mention the Adversarial Gateway Initiatory Ritual, which really is a very powerful ritual, but it's only for those who are ready to go and do this deep work with the dark matter, with the deep psyche. It will really support your process if you're wanting to get into darker occult initiation, or you are wanting to really engage with your deep unconscious on a very deep level. This is going to be something which is going to be extremely supportive to your evolution. And you can join that at just a small monthly subscription. It's performed every full moon. And I also have a premium membership, which is the second link in the description. And this will give you more direct access to me. It's a little bit more expensive, but it will give you more direct access to me. We will be working more closely together. And you will gain access to more advanced initiatory systems and practices with live workshops and training webinars multiple times each month that you can dip in and out of whenever you really want to. Okay, so my goal is really to support those who are wanting to get into these deeper initiatory systems and practices, but do so in a way that is grounded and in a way that is actually safe and sustainable for their personal evolutionary path. But I think that is everything that I wanted to speak about in today's video. Thank you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch. Remember to hit like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.